I guess I should just start by saying I cheated on my wife. Yeah, I'm not proud of it, but I'm also not sitting here drowning in guilt either. It happened, and I don't regret it. But let's back up a bit, because the way things unfolded, you'd think my life was some kind of messed up reality show. It wasn't always this way, though. We had the picture-perfect life, or so I thought. Good jobs, a solid home, and, for a while, we were good together. But then things shifted, slowly at first, like a crack in the foundation that you don't notice until the whole house starts creaking. Kate, my wife, started distancing herself. At first, it was small things like staying a little later at work or being more tired than usual. You brush it off, you know? People get busy. But then the excuses got more creative. Late nights, weekend trips for work, and suddenly her phone was always on silent. I'm not stupid, though. People think they can sneak things past you. But after a while, even the smallest things start to add up. And trust me, Kate wasn't as slick as she thought she was. It wasn't just the phone. It was the damn trips. Every time she packed for one of those business trips, she'd always bring the same bag, the same exact things, like she had a damn routine down. I mean, who the hell does that? She wasn't a neat freak, and it wasn't like she had some strict dress code at work. But every single time it was the same stuff. It started bugging me. Why take the same perfume, the same damn lingerie, if you're just going to sit through boring conferences and meetings? Yeah, I noticed that. How could I not? I couldn't just let it slide anymore. It was gnawing at me, this feeling that something was way off. So I did what any normal guy would do in my situation. I bitched about it to my best friend, Michael. He's been through his own hell with relationships. His wife cheated on him a couple of years back, so I figured he'd know what to do. And man, he didn't sugarcoat it for me. You know, man, I found out about my ex because she did the same crap. All those late nights and business trips. You can't trust it. If you really want to know what's going on, hire someone to follow her. Get the facts straight before you blow up your whole life. Michael was right. There was no point in confronting Kate without solid proof. I wasn't about to walk into a fight without ammo, so I took his advice. Found myself a private investigator, guy named Leo. Seemed like the real deal, someone who'd get the job done without any drama. I didn't tell him much, just that my wife was acting sketchy, and I needed answers. He didn't ask many questions either. Guess he'd seen enough cheating spouses in his career to know how the story usually goes. While Leo was doing his thing, I started digging around too. Not in some creepy, obsessive way, but enough to make sure I wasn't missing any red flags. And damn, were there a lot of them. I started noticing little things. Receipts stuffed in her purse that didn't match where she said she was. Invoices for things I knew had nothing to do with her work. One time, she left her laptop open, and I caught a glimpse of a calendar invite for a meeting that wasn't on any of the dates she was supposedly traveling. It was like the universe was just dropping clues in my lap. I started replaying our conversations in my head, going back over the past few months, try to piece together where everything went wrong. I mean, sure, no marriage is perfect, but this felt like something more. Like she wasn't just slipping away. She was sprinting in the opposite direction, leaving me behind without a second glance. There was this one time, about a month before I called Leo, when Kate came home late. Real late. She had this look in her eyes, like she was trying too hard to be casual. She threw out some bullshit excuse about having to stay late at the office, but I'd seen her work. Nothing she did required those hours. She was in project management, not a freaking ER surgeon. I let it go at the time, though, because I wasn't ready to admit that my wife, the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, might be screwing around behind my back. Then came the night that changed everything for me. She was getting ready for another one of her trips. Same bag, same routine. But this time, I couldn't just sit there and pretend like nothing was happening. I felt the anger boiling inside me, like lava ready to erupt. But I held it together, stayed quiet, because I knew I needed that proof. I couldn't just accuse her without having something solid to throw back in her face when she inevitably denied it. That's when I really started to see the cracks. All the time she left me hanging, her sudden mood swings, the way she barely touched me anymore. It was like I wasn't even in the room. And the worst part? I let it happen. I let her pull away without saying a word, because I didn't want to believe it. No one wants to admit their marriage is a dumpster fire waiting to explode. But it was, and I was ready to light the match. When Leo called me with the first batch of results, I wasn't ready. I mean, I thought I was, but nothing could have prepared me for what he found. I picked up the phone, expecting to hear about some random guy she was screwing around with during her trips, maybe someone from her office. What I didn't expect was for Leo to tell me that Kate had another husband. Another fucking husband. Yeah, you heard that right. Oliver, Leo said, his voice steady, almost too calm for the bomb he was about to drop. Your wife's been living a double life. She's got a husband in another city, a guy named Mark. They've been married for a few years, and, they have a kid together. I nearly dropped the phone. A kid? Another fucking family? I just sat there, speechless, my mind spinning. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Kate, my wife, the woman I'd built a life with, had been lying to me about every damn thing. Business trips? Bullshit. She wasn't working late or flying out for meetings. She was spending weekends with her other family. The life she built with me? Just a cover for whatever the hell this was. I don't remember much of what Leo said after that. I think I hung up on him. It was like my whole world had been flipped upside down. I paced around the house, my mind racing through every detail, every memory. All those times she'd disappeared for the weekend. The corporate retreats and client meetings she had to attend. It all made sense now. Every fucking lie she told me was so that she could run off and play house with this Mark guy and their kid. I wasn't angry yet. That came later. At first, I just felt numb. Like, how the hell do you even process something like that? Your wife has another husband. It's like something out of a bad soap opera, but here I was living it. I needed to see it for myself. Needed to know this wasn't some sick joke. So, I called Leo back, told him to dig deeper. I wanted everything. Where Mark lived, what he did for a living, how long this had been going on. Leo didn't hesitate. He was good at his job, I'll give him that. While he got back to work, I started going through our apartment, looking for anything that might point to this other life she was living. And that's when I found it. Men's clothes, hidden in the back of her closet, stuffed in a suitcase she never used when she was here. Shirts, pants, even some socks that sure as hell didn't belong to me. It was like a punch to the gut. Mark's clothes. That bastard had been in my home, probably worn those clothes around my house while I was out there, busting my ass at work. I wanted to throw them out, burn them even, but I didn't. I shoved the suitcase back where I found it and closed the closet door. I needed more evidence before I did anything. It wasn't time to confront her. Not yet. Over the next couple of weeks, I started watching her more closely. Every move she made, every interaction. I don't know how I missed it before, but it was like the truth opened my eyes to all the little things I had ignored. The way she got all dressed up for those trips, the phone calls she'd taken in another room, speaking in hushed tones like she didn't want me to hear. I even started asking her questions about her work trips, testing her. Where was it again? I'd say casually, "Who'd you go with this time?" She didn't hesitate in her responses, but I could see the flicker of discomfort behind her eyes. She had gotten too comfortable with her lies, but now I was paying attention, and every answer she gave me felt like another stab in the back. Leo sent me more photos. Pictures of Kate with Mark and their kid. There they were, playing happy family at the park, looking like something out of a damn Hallmark movie. Kate was smiling, laughing, like she didn't have a care in the world. Like I didn't exist. And Mark? The guy looked like your average suburban dad. He had no fucking clue. No idea that his perfect wife was living a double life. I couldn't help but wonder what she told him about me. Did he even know I existed? Was I just some work colleague she had to deal with from time to time? Or did she spin some story about how she had to travel for her job, just like she told me? I didn't know. And the worst part was, I didn't care about Mark. I didn't care about his kid or their perfect little life. All I cared about was how Kate had lied to me, how she had made me a fool. But I wasn't going to blow up her spot just yet. No, I needed more. I wanted to make sure that when I confronted her, I had all the ammunition I needed. I wanted to watch her squirm, to see the look on her face when she realized I knew everything. That's what I started living for, seeing her world crash down around her, just like she'd done to mine. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, Leo hit me with another gut punch. As if finding out Kate had a second husband and a kid wasn't enough. Now there was David. A third fucking guy. This wasn't some emotional affair, though. No, this was pure sex. That's what stung the most, I think. She didn't even have feelings for him. It was just physical. It was like I didn't even exist in her world anymore. I mean, how many lives was this woman juggling? It was like some twisted game to her, balancing all these men, and here I was thinking we had something real. When Leo showed me the pictures, I just sat there staring. I felt numb, like this was all happening to someone else. Kate with David, meeting him in the middle of her so-called business trips. He wasn't anything special, just some hotshot businessman who was clearly used to having his way. And Kate? Well, she clearly liked being one of his casual flings. No strings, just sex. It wasn't like with Mark. With him, she had built an entire other life. Another husband, a child, the whole fantasy. But David? He was just a distraction, a side dish on the buffet of her double life. That realization made something snap inside me. It wasn't just that she was cheating, it was that she didn't even care who it was with. She was lying to Mark, to David, to me. She was lying to everyone. And for what? The thrill? The excitement of sneaking around? David was a piece of work too. The guy had no clue she was leading a triple life. He probably thought she was just some bored housewife looking for a good time on the side, someone who'd never get too attached. He was wrong about that, though. He was just another pawn in her twisted game. I wasn't about to blow things up just yet. Not with Mark, not with David, and definitely not with Kate. No, I wanted her to feel the full weight of her bullshit when I was good and ready. In the meantime, I started planning, slowly, methodically. The first thing I needed to do was get even. Not just for the sake of revenge, but to feel like I was in control again. That's where Sarah came in. She'd been flirting with me for months, but I'd always turned her down. Not because I didn't notice, but because I was still clinging to some idea of loyalty, even though Kate had clearly tossed hers out the window. Sarah was smart, beautiful, and she made it pretty clear she was interested. So one day, I stopped holding back. I let her in. It started innocently enough. I took her out to lunch, just as colleagues. She was excited, probably thought I'd finally come to my senses. We didn't talk about Kate, though Sarah had definitely noticed things between us weren't as rosy as they used to be. That was obvious to anyone who paid attention. The thing is, I wasn't really into Sarah, not in a way that meant something, but she was there, and I needed a release. It felt good to be desired, to have someone actually look at me with something other than cold indifference. After lunch, things escalated fast. One night after work, I invited her out for drinks. One drink turned into two, and before I knew it, we were in her apartment. I wish I could say it felt like some kind of victory, but it didn't. It wasn't satisfying, not in the way I thought it would be. It was just a distraction, but it was a step towards something bigger. And for a few moments, I didn't feel like the idiot husband sitting at home while his wife fucked other men. Of course, I wasn't stupid. I knew I couldn't afford to get sloppy. Kate was still oblivious to the fact that I knew everything. She was still going about her business, sneaking off to see David while Mark played house with their kid. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mark was probably tucking their child into bed while Kate was getting railed in some hotel room by her third man. And David? He had no clue that when Kate was done with him, she was off to cuddle up with Mark. The whole thing was sickening, but at the same time, it fueled me. Leo kept feeding me information. I had the pictures, the messages, everything I needed to destroy her when the time was right. Kate's trips were the key. Every time she left for one of those so-called work weekends, she was really splitting her time between Mark and David. It was almost laughable. How had she managed to juggle all this without slipping up? Or maybe she just didn't care if she got caught. Maybe, in her mind, she was invincible. That's when I started putting my revenge into motion. It was subtle at first, little things. I made copies of every text message, every email, every photo Leo sent me. I wanted to be prepared, to have everything laid out neatly when the time came to drop the bomb on her perfect little world. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not until I was sure I had her trapped with no way out. The weirdest part was how normal she acted. She came home after each trip like nothing had happened, smiling, talking about work, even complaining about how tired she was. It was almost funny. She had no idea that I knew. No clue that I was gathering every bit of evidence I needed to rip her life apart. But I wasn't going to stop there. No, I wanted her to feel it. I wanted her to understand the depth of her betrayal and what it had cost me. I wanted her to look me in the eye and see the destruction she'd caused. And I was going to make sure she paid for every last lie. Revenge isn't just some quick fix. It's a slow burn. And I was ready to watch Kate's life go up in flames piece by piece. I'd been playing it cool, letting her think she still had control over everything, while I was the one pulling all the strings. Every time she packed her bags and headed off for her business trips, I knew exactly where she was going, who she was seeing, and what she was doing. And it made me sick. But now it was time to flip the script. I started with Sarah. We'd already crossed the line once, and she seemed more than eager to take things further. For her, it was something real, something exciting. For me, it was just another step in the plan. She had no idea what she was walking into, no clue that I was using her to even the score. We went out for dinner, some fancy place that felt a little too intimate for what this was. But I played the part. I let her talk, let her think she was getting closer to me. I smiled, nodded, asked the right questions. It was almost too easy. When she reached across the table and grabbed my hand, I didn't pull away. I couldn't. She was part of the puzzle, and I needed her. Maybe that makes me a piece of shit, but at this point I didn't care. Kate had burned through any sense of decency I had left. So when the dinner ended, we ended up back at her place again. This time, I stayed longer. I let her think this was something more than it was. And for a little while, I almost convinced myself it was too. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Kate. Saw her with Mark. Saw her with David. Saw her laughing, lying, living a life that had nothing to do with me. That brought me right back to where I needed to be. While Sarah thought we were getting closer, I was getting busy. I spent hours copying every message, every photo, every scrap of evidence that Leo had given me. Kate's entire life was sitting on my hard drive, waiting for the moment I'd blow it all up. But before I could set off the fireworks, I had to see it with my own eyes. I needed to witness her double life in action, to feel the full weight of her betrayal. So, I packed my own bag, hopped in the car, and drove to the city where Mark lived. Leo had already given me the address. I didn't know what I'd find or how I'd feel when I saw it, but I knew I had to go. It was like some sick need, a part of me that needed to watch her lie unfold in real time. The drive gave me plenty of time to think, and by the time I pulled into the quiet suburban neighborhood, I was a wreck inside. It wasn't hard to find the house. It was like something out of a fucking postcard. Neatly trimmed lawn, cozy front porch, the whole bit. And there she was right in the middle of it all. Kate, with Mark, and their kid. I parked a few houses down, watching from a distance like some kind of stalker. Kate was smiling, playing the perfect wife, the doting mother. She kissed Mark like she actually loved him. She held their kid, a little boy who couldn't have been more than 4 or 5, and my stomach turned. It was too perfect, too normal, and it was a fucking lie. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, wondering how she could live like this. How she could look at Mark, look at their kid, and not feel like the biggest piece of shit on the planet. But she didn't. She was good at this. Too good. It made me sick. After a while, I started taking pictures. Not because I needed more evidence. I already had enough, but because I wanted to remember this moment. I wanted to remember what it looked like to see her living this other life. This life that had nothing to do with me. I watched as they played in the yard, watched as they laughed, as they acted like the perfect little family. And I hated every second of it. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I stayed in that city for a couple of days, watching her watching them. Every time she went out, I followed. She didn't notice me, of course. Why would she? In her mind, I was hours away, sitting at home like the oblivious husband I was supposed to be. But I wasn't oblivious anymore. I was paying attention. I was seeing everything. One afternoon, I followed her to a park where she met up with Mark and their kid again. They had a picnic, laughing and playing like nothing in the world could touch them. I wanted to walk over, grab her by the arm, and expose her right there in front of everyone. But I didn't. Not yet. I wasn't ready to make my move. That night, back at the cheap hotel I was staying in, I started plotting. I was going to expose her, all right, but it had to be perfect. I wasn't going to leave her any room to twist her way out of this. She had fucked me over too many times, and now it was my turn to fuck her over. I decided I'd start with Mark. He deserved to know who he was married to. I'd show him the pictures, the messages, the truth. But I wasn't going to stop there. I was going to do the same thing to David. Neither of them knew about each other, and they sure as hell didn't know about me. But they were about to. Kate wasn't going to have anywhere to hide when I was done. I started making notes, putting together a timeline of her lies, figuring out how to drop the bomb on both of them without giving her any chance to weasel out of it. I even thought about sending everything to her parents. Let them see the real Kate, the one they always thought was so perfect. That would really tear her apart. By the time I drove back home, I had the outline of my plan ready. Mark would be first, then David, then everyone else. I'd burn her life to the ground and make sure she felt every single flame. And I couldn't fucking wait. It was time. After weeks of watching Kate's lies unfold in front of me, gathering every piece of dirt and planning my revenge, I was ready to tear her world apart. I'd seen enough of her bullshit. She wasn't going to get away with it. Not after everything she'd put me through. First up on the list, Mark. I couldn't help but feel a weird sort of sympathy for the guy. He had no clue what kind of woman he was married to. No idea she was spending her business trips screwing around with me, David, and God knows who else. He didn't deserve what was coming, but someone had to break it to him. And it sure as hell wasn't going to be Kate. I drove back to the city where Mark lived, this time with a plan. I called him earlier, told him I needed to meet, said it was about Kate. I didn't tell him much more. Let him think whatever he wanted to think. It was better that way. When I knocked on the door, he greeted me with a friendly smile, completely unaware of the shitstorm about to hit him. Oliver, right? Kate mentioned you a few times. Come on in. I almost laughed. She mentioned me? What the hell did she tell him? Did she say I was just a friend? A coworker? The other guy? I shook his hand, feeling a little sick inside, and stepped into the house. It was cozy, warm, the kind of place where you'd expect happy families to live. Mark led me into the living room and offered me a drink, but I wasn't there for pleasantries. Mark, I don't really know how to say this. I started, but he cut me off with a chuckle. She didn't send you here to fix the damn sink, did she? He joked. No, it's not like that, I said, my voice low. It's about Kate. His smile faded. He sat down across from me, suddenly more serious. I could see it in his eyes, the worry, the confusion. He knew something was wrong. I didn't waste time. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through the photos. Pictures of Kate with David, of Kate with me. Messages between her and David. Messages between her and me. Every lie she told, every trip she took, every moment she spent living a double, no, a triple life. I laid it all out in front of him and watched as his face went from confusion to horror to complete devastation. She's been married to me for years. We have a kid, he whispered, staring at the evidence on the screen. How could she do this? I didn't have an answer for him. How could anyone live like that? How could someone be so cold, so calculating, and so heartless? I wanted to feel sorry for Mark, but my anger toward Kate drowned out any sympathy I might have had. He deserved the truth, and now he had it. Mark didn't say much after that. He just sat there staring blankly like someone had ripped his entire world away. And in a way, they had. I left him with the evidence, told him to do whatever he needed to do with it. And then I was out the door, on to the next step. David. That prick was easier to deal with. I didn't care much for him, and from what I'd seen, he didn't care much for anything but himself. I called him too, told him we needed to talk, and set up a meeting. He showed up at a restaurant, dressed in his usual slick businessman attire, thinking this was going to be some quick chat about Kate. Look, man, I said the moment he sat down. I'm just going to get straight to the point. Kate's been lying to you. She's married, and I'm not talking about just me. She's got another husband, a kid, the whole thing. David blinked, then laughed like he thought I was screwing with him. You're serious? Dead serious, I said, sliding the phone across the table with the same photos and messages I'd shown Mark. She's been playing all of us. You, me, him. He stared at the phone, his face unreadable. But David wasn't like Mark. He wasn't emotionally invested in this. He was a businessman, used to cutting ties when things got messy. Well, shit, he muttered, sliding the phone back to me. I guess that's the end of that. No tears, no anger, no questions. He just stood up, shook my hand like we'd just closed the deal, and walked away. It was almost disappointing, honestly, but at least one part of her life had crumbled. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Kate still had no idea that I knew everything. And while she was busy juggling her lies, I was about to drop a nuke on her entire world. I started with her coworkers, sending them anonymous emails with the evidence attached. Every message she sent, every photo she took, every dirty little secret sent to every person she worked with. Then I moved on to our mutual acquaintances, friends we'd known for years, people who thought we were the perfect couple. They all got the same message. Kate's dirty laundry aired for everyone to see. I was like a man possessed, burning through every contact in my phone, leaving nothing behind. I even started to think about her parents. They were old-fashioned strict. They'd always held Kate to some moral high ground, thinking she was the perfect daughter. If they knew what she was really like, it would crush them. But as tempting as it was, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not yet, anyway. Meanwhile, Kate was starting to sense something was off. I wasn't exactly subtle about it. I started acting cold, distant. Stopped talking to her, barely acknowledged her when she came home. I knew it was only a matter of time before she started asking questions. But she hadn't yet. Not directly, at least. Maybe she was scared of what she'd find out if she pushed too hard. In the background, I was already preparing for the divorce. I had the legal documents ready, had spoken with lawyers. Kate wasn't going to get a penny from me. I'd make sure of that. If she thought she was going to walk away from this unscathed, she was in for a rude awakening. I installed surveillance cameras in the house, just in case she brought someone over when I wasn't around. Every angle was covered. By the time I was finished, Kate's world was collapsing, and she didn't even know it yet. But she would. Soon. Revenge doesn't taste sweet. Not the way people think it does. It's not some grand moment of triumph where everything suddenly feels right in the world. It's messy, ugly, and when the dust settles, all that's left is emptiness. That's how I felt after everything I'd done to Kate. I had ripped apart every corner of her life, exposed her lies, and left her standing in the ruins of the life she'd built. But when it was all said and done, I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel satisfaction. I just felt done. It didn't take long for everything to come crashing down on her. Mark left her the second he found out. He took their kid and moved out of their house, cutting Kate off without even looking back. From what Leo told me, Mark was going for full custody in the divorce, claiming Kate was unfit to parent. Can't say I blamed him. Who could trust someone like that around their child? David? He didn't even hesitate. Once he found out about her double or triple life, he disappeared. Just like that. I don't think it even fazed him. To him, Kate was just another woman he'd slept with, another casual fling that got too complicated. He cut ties and moved on, leaving her in the dust. Then came the fallout at work. The rumors started spreading like wildfire. It wasn't long before her colleagues got wind of everything she'd been hiding. The emails I sent out did their job. People whispered about her behind her back, wondering how she could live such a twisted life. They didn't respect her anymore. Hell, they didn't even want to be associated with her. Before long, she lost her job. Her boss didn't fire her outright, but from what I heard, they pushed her out, quietly nudging her into resignation. By the end of it, Kate had nothing. No husband, no lover, no job. She was isolated, alone. The one thing she feared most had come true. Her perfect little world was gone, destroyed by her own lies. But me? I wasn't gloating. Sure, there was relief. Relief that I didn't have to live with her deceit anymore. I was free of it, free of her. But there was no joy in it. My life was different now, quieter, emptier. There was no going back to the way things were, not after everything that had happened. And honestly, I didn't want to. Kate tried to reach out to me a few times. First, it was emails, long, rambling messages about how she regretted everything, how she was sorry for the pain she caused. She asked for forgiveness, begged me to give her another chance. She said we could fix things, rebuild what we had, but there was nothing to fix. What we had was already dead, and she was the one who killed it. The last time she called, I picked up, but I didn't let her get far. The second she started talking about us, I cut her off. It's better to be alone than be with a cheater, I told her. My voice was cold, detached. I didn't feel anything for her anymore. Not anger, not love, not hate, just indifference. She cried. I heard it in her voice as I hung up the phone. But I didn't care. I couldn't. Whatever connection we had was gone. I was done with her. After that, I decided to start fresh. I wasn't in any rush to jump into a serious relationship, but I kept seeing Sarah. She was a good companion, steady, reliable. But I wasn't about to throw myself into anything deep just yet. We had fun, spent time together, but I was cautious. After everything that had happened with Kate, trust wasn't something I could just hand out anymore. Sarah understood that. She didn't push, and I appreciated that. In the meantime, I focused on myself. I quit my old job and started working on something new, something that made me feel alive again. I threw myself into the work, met new people, built new friendships. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own life. I wasn't defined by Kate anymore. I was just Oliver, and that felt damn good. Kate, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. From what I heard through the grapevine, she was trying to pick up the pieces of her life, but it wasn't going well. People didn't trust her. She burned too many bridges, hurt too many people. The lies she told, the betrayals, they followed her everywhere she went. Every door she tried to open was slammed shut in her face. And as much as she tried to rebuild, her past kept haunting her. I never saw her again after that last call. I didn't need to. She was a ghost now, a part of my past I'd left behind. And even though I didn't get the satisfaction of some grand victory, I got something better. Peace. I didn't have to live in her shadow anymore. I didn't have to wonder what she was doing, who she was with, or if she was telling me the truth. I was free of her lies, and that was enough. In the end, revenge didn't give me joy, but it gave me closure. And maybe that's all I ever really needed.